This is Chapter 12 we're starting now, and we're on Section 12.1. Chapters 12, 13, 14, and 15 will all be dealing with the financial calculator and this thing called time value of money. So we're going to be using this calculator for a while. Money earns interest over time, and we talked about that in section 9.3 when we were working with compound interest. Our TVM registers are going to be used for compound interest applications, and so we're going to be working with different things with savings accounts or just different kinds of accounts where you would earn interest. We're also going to be talking about loans down the road. So these are your TVM registers. If you notice that I have those circled, the N, the IY, PV, PMT, and FV, those are the keys you're going to use over and over and over again. And also notice that we have recall. Right, so the recall button right here is going to allow you to look at something that you've got entered into the calculator. Compute, CPT, means that we're going to be computing with that. We're going to talk about what these keys mean on the next slide. So we're going to write out what each of these mean. So N means the total number of periods for the time that the money is invested, earning interest, and so the total number of periods. We're going to use I, right? So that's our periodic rate. We just kind of ignore the fact that it has the Y on there. This is our interest rate, right? So interest rate. And it's the interest rate divided by the number of periods. So or the number of times it's compounded, rather. PV stands for present value. And then PMT is payment, and this would be a periodic payment. So the number of times that it's paid would equal the number of periods for that particular savings account or whatever it might be. So that's our periodic payments. And then FV would be future value. All right, so that's just naming the keys, and you will have to understand those as you are learning this. Okay, so we're going to look at this example and just identify a few things here. You deposit $2,500 today in a savings account paying 6.5% interest compounded quarterly. What will it be worth at the end of 5 years? And so we're going to kind of name all the parts here. Notice that it tells us that it will be for 5 years, so that's important. But not only that, but how often is it compounded? Quarterly means 4 times per year. And we talked about that in section 9.3. So the total number of periods is going to be 5 years times 4, because that's the number of times it's compounded, right? Compounded quarterly. And so that will be 20 periods. Okay. On the next one, the periodic rate is going to be our interest rate, and we talked about this back in section 9.3 also. We take our interest rate and we divide it by the number of times it's compounded. So that means every 3 months it will be this number that we get. Now, remember that on your calculators now, we need to have them set on 2 decimals because we're in the TVM keys, and we haven't talked about that just yet, but we will be talking about it. So you can always reset your calculator, and that's easy to do. Second, and you can see right above the plus minus, and push enter. Now, if I have my calculator set on 2 decimal places and I divide 6.5 by 4, then I get this number 1.63. By the way, we do not change interest rates to a decimal for this when we use the TVM keys. So the actual amount or the actual percent for our periodic rate is different than what we see on our screen because it's going to round automatically to 2 decimal places, but there may be some trailing decimals, and if you looked at the entire thing you would see those. And so you want to be careful with this. You're always looking at the fact that, okay, this is what it says on my screen, but in reality that number is 1.625%. We are going to see this number on our screen, the 1.63, and that's what we will enter into our TVM key that we're going to use for that. It actually has the real number, but we don't see it, if that makes sense. That part can be a little confusing, so you'll have to keep, if you're off by a little bit, it often has to do with this periodic rate. Alright, so the present value in this case is how much we deposit today, right? Present value, the value of my deposit. Now, we're going to put that in as a negative. So you have to put the number on your screen and push the negative key. We aren't actually putting it on our calculator yet, but we will be. And then your periodic payment, in this case, is 0 because there was no payment. We just have a one-time thing. We're going to deposit $2,500 and that's it. And future value we will compute. Right, so we don't know what the future value is just yet. We will be computing it. So here's how we determine if we're going to use a positive or a negative. Money that you get to spend right now is positive. Money you're putting away is negative. Okay, so if you're just making a deposit into an account, that's negative. If you're making payments, those are negative because you're not receiving them. Now, if you're receiving payments, that would be positive. So as you go, it will be up to you to make sure you figure out, should I be putting this in as a negative or as a positive? And it's very important. There are times when it won't make a difference in your answer, but there are many times when it will make a difference. So you just have to know and learn that as part of this. Okay, so this is the part where I knew this was coming up, so I told you to reset your calculators there, but let's do this. So these are the keys you press, right? The second key, and reset is right above your plus minus, and you should actually reset your calculators fairly often when we're working with TVM keys because your calculator will start to get kind of jumbled up and it needs to be cleared out. So make sure that you just reset on a regular basis. You're wiping out all the memory and that's okay. You don't really have anything in there that you need to worry about. It also sets your calculator on 2 decimal places. And so you can see I wrote that in here. While using TVM keys, you should reset your calculator regularly because otherwise you'll end up missing answers that you shouldn't be missing, right? You put the numbers in right, but it's not coming out right. Okay, so those keys, that key sequence right there is what you will see, and the RST even on your calculator screen will be there. All right. So when you're entering your data, you have to be careful. Always check your screen as you type, and then press whatever's on your screen will go in for that TVM key. So if you accidentally press a key and you had something on your screen you didn't really want in there, it's going to get messed up. So watch what appears on your screen when you press your TVM key. All right, just be careful there. And we'll talk about that as we enter these numbers now. Now you're going to see a lot of these charts on the teaching lessons that I have for you because we're going to use these charts to enter our numbers, and then of course we're going to use the calculator to compute. And so when we're putting the numbers in, you will put in 5 times 4 and push your equal key, and once that's on your screen, then you put that in for n. And same thing with your interest rate. You're going to put in 6.5 divided by 4 equals, and then put that number on your and the I key, right? So whatever number is on your screen at that point, you will put in for I. And then for your present value, you're going to put the number on the screen first. You can't put the negative positive on until you have a number on the screen. So you enter the number 2,500 and then you press your negative key and it will show that on your screen, and then you're going to put that on PV. For payment, I like you to go ahead and put the zeros in. That just makes sure that you override anything else that might have been in there if you didn't clear something, and then that will be there. Now, when we compute, we want to know which one were we computing, and so you should actually circle this in some way as you go, so when you look back at it, you know, hey, that's the one I computed for this particular question. So we will press compute for future value, and your future value should be positive because it's an amount of money you get to take out because it's grown and now you can take it. And our future value for this case should be 3,451.05. All right, and so you have to have all the numbers in correctly. It needs to come out exactly to the penny. If you're off at all, then something's not right. And so just make sure you practice this one and you're able to press compute, and this number is what comes up on your screen. All right, we're going to end here and I'll start 12.2 on the next video.